Hello, Black Healing Matters family. Danielle here with the Black Healing Matters podcast, where we offer you ideas to hopefully move you one step closer to your healing. And happy Tuesday to you. This is a wonderful Know Thy History Tuesday here, as is every Tuesday on the Black Healing Matters podcast. And why is Know Thy History Tuesday so important? Well, we like to get into some history because, as the old saying goes, it's hard to know where you're going if you don't know where you came from. And for most of us, our history pretty much starts with slavery. Now, we know that our history began much far before, long before slavery, American chattel slavery, North American chattel slavery. However, we know very little about our ancestral roots on the continent of Africa. And so every week on Know Thy History Tuesday, we try to get into some different types of history. And for the past few weeks, we've been talking a lot about American history, African American history. Well, today we're back to Africa, y'all. And we're going to talk about the famous Kingdom of Kush. You see, the Kingdom of Kush sprang up along the upper reaches of the Nile River. Kush was the first African state, other than Egypt, of which there is record. This was a state on the frontier of Egypt's activity, where Egyptian garrisons had been stationed from time to time. By 1000 BC, it emerged as an independent political unit, though strongly influenced by Egyptian forms. By 730 BC, as Egypt declined, Kush was strong enough to conquer its northern neighbor and rule it for several centuries, though this conquer was soon ended by the Assyrian invasion from the Middle East. After this point, the Kushites began to push their frontier farther south, gaining a more diverse African population and weakening the Egyptian influence. It was at this point that the new capital was established at Meroe. Kushites became skilled in iron use and had access to substantial African ore and fuel. The use of iron tools extended the area that could be brought into agriculture. Kush formed a key center of metal technology in the ancient world as a basis for both military and economic strength. Now, did you know that about Kush? Have you even heard of the Kingdom of Kush? I myself, yes, I had heard of this kingdom, but I didn't really know much about it. And one of the things that unfortunately happens when we talk about history is that the contributions of African peoples, and especially of ancient Africa, are often omitted. And from the European perspective, the Eurocentric view of history often begins with the Greeks and Romans. But as we can see here, just from this information about Kush, 1000 BC, 1000 years BC, before Christ, that's over 3000 years ago, Africans were developing metal technology for weapons, artillery, and tools. Now, this is not information that you'll typically hear in regards to history, but here it is on the history-world.org website. Okay, let's continue. Kushites developed a form of writing, there you go, writing derived from Egyptian hieroglyphs. Now, that in itself is interesting because many scholars have been quoted by saying that ancient Africans, had no writing, no system of writing. So their history, their facts could not be transmitted. But we know that that's not true, actually. As mentioned here, Kushites, 1000 BC, actually developed their own form of writing as well. They established a number of significant cities. They had economic influence all over the sub-Saharan African region. They had extensive trade with people from the West. They brought iron as well and other ironworks to all of Africa. They were a center for trading, as mentioned. As well, they were able to channel goods, African goods, all over the world and into the Middle East. Goods such as animal skins, ebony, ivory, gold, and slaves came through this area. Fine pottery and jewelry as well. So, this was a very opulent, very prosperous kingdom. Okay? Meroe also was a place of many documents. So these were learned people. Meroe also began unfortunately to decline from about 100 AD onward and was eventually defeated by a kingdom to the south called Aksum. And we'll learn a little more about Aksum later. However, I just wanted to give you a taste of this wonderful empire called Kush, which for many of us is largely unknown. So, Black Healing Matters family, tell me, do you know about anything else about this great kingdom of Kush? If you have anything to add to this conversation, would love to hear from you. Of course, you can send me a call in here on Anchor or a comment on YouTube, SoundCloud, or even over on Facebook in the Black Healing Matters Facebook group. As well, if all else fails, you can just send me a good old-fashioned email, blackhealingmatters@gmail.com. And on that note, Black Healing Matters family, hope you're having a fantastic Tuesday. As always, stay blessed. Black Healing Matters.
The podcast you just heard was recorded with Anchor. If you want to make your own, download the Android or iOS app completely free from anchor.fm/podcast. That's anchor.fm/podcast.